Hey everybody, Zach here, and welcome to the 24th lesson of this RTS tutorial series. In this lesson, we will go over finishing our Marquee Selection setup, and we'll be able to actually select our units. That said, fire up your project, and I'll see you on the other side.
So welcome back to the tutorial, or to the editor. And as you can see, I have two units currently spawned in my marquee box. Can be drawn, but it isn't selecting anything. So let's get that set up so we can select units. We can still right click on them and get information. So what we want to do is we want to, well, end this sort of playthrough right there, that test at least. We are going to do a couple of things first in our pawn. So go ahead and go to your units folder, open up your pawn master, and in here, what we want to do is we want to create a couple of new functions. So it's pretty much going to be the same function, just twice over. That first one, what we're going to do is we are going to get rid of the the deselected or the bad selection icon and switch over to the selected decal. And then we'll do one where it reverses it back to our original setting. So in our master, we are going to, as I said, create those functions. So give me 1 second, just want to make sure that, yep, I just had it structured that way. I thought I did, and I was just double checking, sorry. So, first thing we want to do is we want to create our set selected decal. And we'll put this in our nested folder there with a unit, and it will be selection. So within this one, what we want to do is we want to grab in our deselected icon, and we want to just drag off of here, and we want to set visibility, plug that into there, and we want to set visibility to not be true, so we leave it as is. I'm just going to drag that up there. I'm going to drag the deselect actually down here a tiny bit, put a reroute in, and just move it there. We're going to drag off of here, and we're going to do set hidden in game. And I'm going to toss in another reroute. Just going to raise that reroute so it's even there, and a little bit closer there. Then drag it up here, and plug it in. On this one, we do want to set hidden in game. I'm just going to take these two nodes, and I'm going to duplicate them. And I'm going to plug, I'm going to plug that set hidden into set visibility, and we're going to set this to true, so on the new visibility, on the second set visibility, true, and then on the set hidden in the second set hidden, we are going to set new hidden to false. Actually, going to drag this out a tiny bit more, and then I'm going to drag in my selected decal. I'm going to plug it into there, put my reroute in, and then drag off that reroute and plug it into here, and put a second reroute node in, just so it is, again, a bit neater looking. Alright, that finishes out the setting the selected decal. And if for some reason we want to use something after this, we want to actually call it inside of this blueprint, I'm just going to put in a return node, just so we have one. And then I'm going to copy everything in here, Control-C copy, and I'm going to create a new function called set deselected decal. And again, this will be in my selection folder. And I'm just going to paste everything in. I'm just going to move that down here and just plug that into there. Now, I like the fact that the first thing we do is you make something hidden and then we make something visible. So I'm just going to unhook the decals and switch their locations around. Actually, I'm going to rehook those. I'm just going to right click them, and I'm going to, oh, I can't replace it that way, so I will unhook them. I thought I could replace them like I could with a normal node, but unfortunately, as these are components, that does not seem to be possible, or I've just missed something. Alright, then the final thing I need to do in this one is we still need that return node just in case we need it. So I'm going to type in return, and there we go. Our unit is ready to be selected and to show it selected. So we're done with our unit master for now. I'm just going to close it on out. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a simple function inside of our player. So let's go to our player controller. And this function, all it's going to do is it's going to take the information from an array. So I am going to apparently I've got two functions with oh sorry, no I don't. It is going to be one function called set selected units. And in set selected units, all we are doing is we're adding in, I'm not sure why that happened, sorry about that. All we're doing is we're adding in one new input, which will be selected units, which will be of type RTS, sorry, not RTS player, RTS unit master. And this will be of an array type. And we're going to drag off from our array, and we're going to declare variable, and this will be our selected units variable. I've noticed we haven't organized our folder quite yet, so I'm actually going to move these two variables into a folder for marquee variables. And again, this one will go into marquee variables. And our selected units variable. Not sure why I have variable here. Sorry about that, should be just selected units. We'll go into a new folder called, well, unit control. We'll compile and save that, and we're pretty much done with our player controller, but we're going to leave it open for now just in case we need to return to it. So let's now go to our marquee HUD. Let's open it up. And if you remember last time, we have this thing that checks, is there any item, is there any index inside our selected units array, or is it empty? If it's empty, we want to run through this. But we also want to do something if it's full. What we want to do if it's full is we want to empty it out. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to drag off this true branch to begin with. So when we drag off this true, what we're going to do is we're going to do for each loop. And what a for each loop does is it goes through an array, it finds every incident in the array and does whatever you tell it to do on the other side. I'm just going to put a reroute in there just so it can be a bit neater looking. Neater and nicer, that is. And I'm also then going to move the on-hold input out of the way because it's actually now in my way. And I'm going to select everything off this false branch, and I'm just going to move this further out. Just have a bit of room to play with. I have to give myself a fair amount of room to play with. It'd probably be easier at some point to collapse that down to a macro or to a function. So the array we want for each loop is our selected units array. So we'll go to our units. We'll take our selected units, and we'll plug it into there. So for everything in this array, we want to do something. Well, we are clearing the array when we start a new selection. So one of the first things I want to do, actually the only thing I want to do on the loop body really, is oh, actually I skipped a step. I'm going to go back to my unit real quick as I think about this. And in my unit, I am, just to be on the safe side, going to add a new boolean in called is selected. And I'm going to put that, I'm going to put that in my bool folder, of course, and I'm going to save and compile. Now I'm going to go back here, and what I want to do is I want to get from my array element, which remember is going to be one of our units, a set deselected decal. So if there is a item in this array, their decal later on, in this function that is later on in this tutorial, will have been set to a selected decal. We want to get rid of that and put the red decal back on. And also, because we've set unit selected in a later point, which you'll see in this video, we want to turn is selected off. So we'll search is selected, and we'll set is selected. Add in another reroute just so it's a bit neater. Plug it in there. I'm just going to move this reroute ever so slightly. In fact, actually, I'm going to put a second reroute in so it's, again, a bit neater looking. Now, what we want it to do is once it's done all this, we want it to clear out the array itself. So to do so, we're going to grab our selected units again, and we're going to drag off of here and type in clear. What the clear function does is it finds any item in the array, any incidence or index in the array, and removes that item from it. So that is all items are being removed from the array. The entire array is being emptied. From there, if someone wants to select, then they can select. So that covers what we need to do for this node. So now it checks, do they have anything in this array? Are there any units currently selected? In other words, if there are, remove those units from the array so nothing is selected, and then begin drawing. If there isn't anything in the array, begin drawing our rectangle right away and setting the variables we need. So off of this one, we have now is drawing. What we needed to do is we're going to need to pass on some information. We needed to pass on to the array, to the controller, that there is an array for it to fill. So if we remember in our unit master, in our controller, we created this selected units, which we haven't categorized. So this will be our unit control, let's call it unit control as well. Let's be all unit control. So we need to pass the information from the marquee select into our player controller. Just kind of compile and save real quick. So to do so, what we'll do is we'll go to our references. We'll grab a reference to our unit controller. We'll grab our selected arrays, because remember, if you go back into that, so it's being passed in. And we will set that function, or we'll call that function, that is. So we'll do set selected units, and that's our function that we're calling there. So we're setting it, and I'm just going to drag that up a tiny bit. And what we want to set it with is our selected units, so we're going to pass that through here as well. So now, when we release our hold, it will fire off another script. It'll be over here, and it'll take the information from that script and pass it through to the selected units. So next, what we want to do, so make sure that everything there is still good, is we want to go to this set of nodes here. And this is where things can get a bit complicated. Oops, sorry about that extra noise. So we have that pin, the second pin here, that we haven't done anything with yet. What we want to do with it is we want to actually set our units here. And to do so, what we're going to do is we are going to start over here, and we're going to just right click and type get actors in selection rectangle. Now we could write our own function for this, but honestly it's just easier to use this. We're going to do some things with this that are a little bit different in the future. We're going to actually have a couple of these when we add vehicles in. If you use the second method I'll show you, I plan on 2 methods, as I've not actually fully written out how I'm going to do that lesson. It might be just one method we end up using. So we're going to type in unit master though here. So we want to pass into it our unit master. And for our first point and our second point, it wants to know where we are first drawing from and where the drawing ends. And we luckily have 2 variables for that. Our clicked location being our first point, and our holding location being our second point. I'm going to include non-colliding components. And off of this, I am going to do units, I'm going to promote a variable, and this will be units in selection area. And I'm going to move this into my units folder. Even though this isn't anything actually useful quite yet, I'm just going to drag that out a tiny bit and close that up again so we're a little bit neater. And now we're going to want another for each loop. So for each, and we're just going to pass this array directly in. So take these selected units, and we want to know something about these units. What we want to know is, are they actually of the correct class, or child of that class. So we're going to do get class, and we will also then do class is child of, and what's going to be a child of is, of course, our RTS unit master. So bring that in there. I'm just going to pull that out a tiny bit. Actually, I'm going to lower this a tiny bit as well. The next thing we want to do is create a branch. And this branch will have a condition based on, is it the correct class? When we add vehicles in, again, we're going to have some other stuff we do here. And the other thing we want to do is we want to be able to call up the unit master as needed, or at least the functions in the children that are inherited from the master. So we're going to grab out to here, and we're going to type cast to RTS unit master. Usually I know we cast from, say, up here. We only really want this cast when we are calling the particular units. There are other ways to do this, by the way, for unit selection. I would say the Marquee Selection is fairly standard from everything I've seen in games and in various books and other sources. So how you handle this might change. This is just the way I prefer to do it. But again, I want you to do these tutorials with the mindset that 1, this isn't a finished product. 2, it's meant to show you base functionality. And 3, it's meant for you to play around with and develop ideas from. This is not supposed to be the end-all, be-all. This is how you should do an RTS. So yeah, I might have come across that way a few times in comments being a little bit defensive. And again, I apologize about that. So now what we need is, I mentioned in the last video, with this selected units, we need a selected unit variable, just to have it sort of here. We're going to promote a variable, selected unit. We're not ever going to use this really. It might be useful when we only have one item that's in there. So again, go into our units folder. And then the next thing we need is we're going to do a sequence. So we're going to drag off of here. We'll do sequence. The first thing we want to do is we want to add, sorry, I lied, we actually do use this pretty much right away. The first thing we want to do is add a unique item to an array. So add unique adds a item to an array that is, well, as the name says, unique to that array. And because we're clearing the array when we start selection, any item we add at this point is pretty much going to be unique. So our array will be our selected units, because that's what we want to add it to. And the item type is going to be our unit master. Alright, now that we've done that, what we want this array to do is we want this array to cause every member to get the get the selected decal, the green one. So again, we're going to drag off of here, and we're going to do for each loop. And off this, we are going to do our selected units as the array we are pulling these from. And from here, we want to set selected decal. And we want to set that there. And we want all these items to be set to selected. Is selected. And then we're going to set is selected as true. Again, we're not using this for anything quite yet, but it will be useful down the line. Just going to drag that there, and put another one in here to save myself some time. And just drag this up here and set it into there. Right, so that should cover pretty much making sure that our unit is selected. Let's compile and save. Let's do Control S save to make sure everything saves. And I'm a little bit paranoid, I just hit Control D by mistake, so I'm just going to, no, I did not. Alright, Control S save. Compile again, and let's go into here for a second, and let's hit play. We are going to spawn that character back in, we'll select it, hit pause, and I am going to go in here for a second. What I want to do in here is just make sure everything looks right, not our selected unit, sorry. I'm going to turn on my debugger by selecting RTS Marquee. If we go in here, we see we have the unit as being the current value. It's going to be the same unit as that value. So let's go back to our test for a second. Let's spawn in a few more units. So we now have 4 units selected. That one from over there should be unselected. Let's go back to our marquee select. We go in here, we now see we have 4 units, where 0 is the top one, so current value equals 0, that first item in the array. The second is, you can see them listed there. That's just curious. Let's see which one is in there. So the fourth item in the array is the one that keeps the fourth unit, which is the third item in, it's actually the second item in this array, is the one that has received this sort of status as the selected unit. So all the items are in there at least. It's calling correctly from the unit master, and also from the child as well. So anything that is derived from or made of or is the unit master will get added to this array when highlighted. So what we need to think about is how we're going to have, as you can see, it's always checking. That's why we had that is draw. What we need to think about is when we add a car in, or a vehicle, or a tank, or an airplane, or helicopter, how this part is going to work. Because clearly, the base components here, inside our unit master, are going to be different than the components we use within our, vehicles. So that said, we now are able to select our units, and we can get them to do things, we'll be able to get them to do things a little bit later in this tutorial series. So let's just see how many we can select at once as I do my usual closing. So, as always, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and if you did, make sure to hit that like icon down below. It gets this tutorial out there, and it really helps boost the ratings of this channel to do so. It lets me know that I'm bringing you content that you value. In addition, if you have anything you want to see in the series, anything I haven't talked about, any special topics, please let me know in the comments, and I will see what I can do about including that. I hope this has been helpful for you guys so far. We have a fair amount of them selected. And outside of that, I hope to see you guys in the next video where we will start doing a little bit more with these units in terms of getting them to do some movements, and we'll talk about setting up our vehicles shortly thereafter. And as always, I hope that you have a wonderful day.